Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time again for one of our favorite shows, This Week with Wendy, the only show where you'll find the real talk about the real SoCal estate of mind. With your host, Wendy Ross, who after decades of working at real estate brokerages in Silicon Valley and Orange County, decided, hey, it was time for something different, and so she created a different real estate business model, Veracity Real Estate. She thought the time was right for a renewed commitment to bespoke client advocacy at all price levels, something you don't see in high-cost markets like Southern California. And through it all, she's built a company of data-driven decision makers, real estate investment advisors, and above all else, truth seekers and truth tellers. So truth be told, she's got a lot to say, and I'm always looking forward to what's on her mind. So let's bring in the mind reader herself, the market mind reader. That's what I'm going to call her now, the market mind reader. Wendy Ross, welcome.
Good morning. That's a mouthful.
That is.
The market mind reader. Yeah, I wish I could tell you that I was reading everybody's minds, because then I could just sit at home and eat bonbons, right? Anticipating all that's going to come before us.
I don't think anybody can. You know, the stock market, bad news and the market goes up, good news, the market goes down. I don't get it. And the same thing's true with real estate. I remember watching an interview with one of the house flippers. I forgot which one. Who's the guy that's in Orange County here? His name escapes me.
Tarek?
Tarek, yes.
Yeah.
And this was like a couple of years ago as the pandemic started. And he said, market's going to crash. People are out of jobs. Bad things are happening. Hang on. Market didn't crash. Doubled, went up. I mean, prices went crazy. And inventory went down. So I don't understand the market mentality. You are going to have to make it clear for us here today.
Well, there's a lot of fervor and consumer sentiment that drives things. You know, the whole notion of perception is reality.
Yes.
Or perception becomes reality.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we are in Orange County.
Yeah.
You know, we make wacky things happen here on the daily. So why would this be any different?
Why would it be any different? I don't know.
mean, come on.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that's why you love me, right? And I thought I was your favorite show.
That and your blue hair to match your
Okay.
blue outfit here today.
hair
I
is
like that.
fabulous,
The
I
little
know.
blue streak at the bottom there that just kind of.
Everything has to be on brand.
Right? These are my brand colors.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know,
Even your hair.
I can't be like everybody else. That would A, be boring, and B, be kind of stupid, because not everybody's getting it right. And that, again, that's why you love me. I know you do, because I bring a different perspective. I
You
look
do.
at the market and I report what I find a little bit differently.
You know what else I like? And I'm sorry to just keep riffing on here, but I've seen it before. Real estate starts to take off years ago. Everybody's got a real estate license, and everybody and your brother's got a real estate license. Everybody
Right.
can sell a house. Like, it's
Right.
that easy. And
Right.
then when the market crashes, nobody's selling real estate. Everybody jumps on the market. There are a few people like you that have ridden it up and down through the years, and from different perspectives, mortgage, lending, all sorts of other stuff that you've been involved in. So.
Well, and that's precisely why when I arrived this morning, you asked me if it was good news or bad news. And it really depends upon your perspective. Like, what side of the fence are you sitting on? Because
Yeah.
that skews your opinion about if a rising market is good or bad, or a falling market. You know, and markets change. You know, it's like the ocean. I will always use this analogy. There are sets of waves that come and go. No two are exactly the same, but what comes in will go out. It'll come back in. It'll go back out.
So to that point, we had somebody on a few weeks ago on another show, and they were talking not about home real estate markets, but commercial real estate and some other things. And this is a guy from one of the big title companies, and he said, underreported, but all the rocket mortgage lenders, the cheap refi guys, they've laid off massive amounts of people. I didn't hear that, you know.
Yeah, it's not very sexy news.
They have good PR teams.
Exactly.
I guess that's what it
They
is.
have good PR teams hiding the news.
Oh, my
But you know,
goodness.
Paul, it's not really about whether it's good or bad, because what Wendy's analysis always yield is how to make sense of this data
Yes.
and what to do with it. We're not going to be able to change the market. As Wendy
Right.
said, so much of this is about consumer sentiment. And Paul, we're dealing with factors that we haven't had to deal with in 100 years.
Well, I'll say.
Post-pandemic, we are approaching a global war beat.
Right?
And we don't know what's going to happen next. And as of this morning, monkeypox is in California.
Monkeypox, as if we didn't
How
have
are
enough.
we going to know what to do with that? But what Wendy can do is keep our finger on the pulse so that we
Right.
can decide what to do as investors, as
Right.
homeowners, as sellers, and people on the sidelines.
Yeah, and every time I turn around, to your point, there's something new and unexpected going on, and all we can do is throw it in the bucket of crazy,
Yeah.
and try and figure out how people are going to respond to it. You know, and part of how I do that is because I bring on people like Kara to interrogate me and keep me on my toes.
It
and,
feels like an interrogation when she's on something. She presses you. She really wants
you
to
know,
know.
But I do it with a smile.
You do, I do. Well, and we've had Kara on before, and I'm so appreciative. She's a frequent contributor to OC Talk Radio, a former journalist, and currently a media and marketing entrepreneur. And she's also the chief brand officer of my company, Veracity Real Estate. So, of course, Kara knows me well, but she's also very good at keeping me on my dang toes. So I know that it's not going to be any different this morning, is it?
Nope, it's not. Thank you for having me here again today, because we not only have some questions about what's happening in the market last week, but I'm going to ask you to be that mind reader, as Paul said, and forecast what's going to happen this summer. And then also just on the drive in, some breaking news we heard today. I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to interpret it, or at least give us some factors to consider as news unfolds.
Good grief.
Good grief.
I brought this upon myself, people.
You really did.
Yeah, and if this doesn't make the phones ring, nothing will.
Come on, a woman with blue hair is a badass. There's nothing you can't handle, right?
All right, I'm no shrinking violet. I will give you that. I will give you that.
Shrinking blue violet.
Shrinking blue violet. Well, before we get into what's going to happen perhaps this summer or later this year, what happened last week in the market?
This is interesting. Every week I've been coming on here saying, this is boring, we don't have enough inventory, blah, blah, blah. And essentially last week was fairly consistent with that. And we had 557 new listings come on the market. That was a 12% increase over the week before. We have been waiting for this uptick. A 12% increase is good. It's what we need. We're going into the peak selling season. It's effectively June, people. Next week it's June. So it looks like our inventory is picking up. We put 525 homes into escrow last week. That was up 3%. 559 homes sold. That was up 2.6%. Are you seeing a trend here? What's going into escrow is not keeping up with what's coming on the market. That was what I didn't expect. So as of last week, we still had a median days on market of 7 days. So those homes that were in escrow that closed last week, median was 7 days on market. Median sold price didn't change either, $1,050,000, exactly the same as the week before and the week before that. And the list to close price ratio, same. What's interesting here is that there's a lot of flatlining going on in the data for the closed sales, but those that aren't closed yet, that's where the movement is. So what we really need to look at now, and this is the big pivotal change, forgive my pun, is that the days on market for the oldest indicator, which is the closed sales. I mean, those homes that closed last week, they were put under contract between 45 and sometimes 60 days ago. So their median days on market is not reflective of the market heat right now. And the second oldest category are those homes that are currently in escrow, pending sale, so they're almost closed. And the days on market for that category is 8. The average is 16, the median is 8 days. Slightly fresher batch of data is those homes that more recently went into contract and more recently opened escrow. So those are the ones that went into contract between 1 and at most 30 days ago. They had a median days on market of 25 days and an average of 33 days, exponentially more than those that closed.
So it's more than doubling.
Exactly. So, and those that are actively on the market right now, the median is 14 days. So there's no way when these homes close, we're going to have anywhere near a 7 days on market because they're not even in escrow yet. They don't have offers yet. And the average is 28 days for those that are actively on the market. So yes, the market is cooling in terms of heat. And what I've been saying week over week is that we need to get to where we have 35 to 40 days on market. We're there.
Paul, can we go ding, ding, ding? Can we
Ding,
ring
ding.
a bell
I'm sorry,
now?
ding, ding, ding.
Thank you.
So yeah, it snuck up on us because I keep reporting the closed data. And frankly, people, that's my bad. I should have really been sharing with you.
But this isn't what you'd expect to see in red hot summer. Summer is when
Right.
everything
Right.
sells. I would think it'd still be going crazy. I wouldn't see anything cool off or level off or turn back into normal in the peak season.
Boom. You nailed it. That's exactly my point, Paul. That's why I said there's news today.
Yeah.
The story is changing. It's shifting. And instead of more homes selling, we're really plateaued. In fact, I've taken a look at, and I keep reporting this, the last week of every month tends to have a surge of homes close escrow. It's like the end of the month is this panic every month. I don't get it, whatever. But if there isn't a huge surge this last week of May, and if we continue selling homes in May the way we have, we will sell about 30% fewer than normal for the month of May.
Wow.
Which would mean January and February this year were really low in terms of sales because we just had no inventory. March picked up, which was great. April didn't exceed March. It was pretty flat, and May will probably be lower. So our big bump is behind us.
So I know Kara's got lots of questions, but I'm going to ask one up front, and then
Sure.
I'll try and be quiet here.
No, no, no.
You would think some of this slowing down, cooling off, leveling off, whatever you want to call it, has to do with prices.
Absolutely.
And has to do with rising interest rates.
This is clearly an affordability issue. Because before, I would say it was an issue of scarcity. Homes were selling so fast because there was nothing else to pick from. There was scarcity. Interest rates were low. People were clamoring to get what they could get. Now that interest rates have gone up, and now that prices have escalated to this point, we're starting to hear in the media, and I'm not talking about mainstream media, but it will get there. But we're starting to hear crazies on YouTube, and you know, every armchair quarterback is already starting to say the end is nigh, the sky is falling.
Yeah, right. And
You
the
know,
prices will
I'm
drop.
thinking of one or two of our favorite friends who swear by the videos they see on TikTok.
I'm not. I can't. I can't even respond to that. I don't want to respond to that. You know, I'm sure some TikTokers are very smart, very capable, intellectual people. I
They
just
are.
don't know them.
But we have some, we'll call some fringe journalism there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, fringe journalism. I'm not going to respond to fringe journalism. I'm going to respond to data. And Paul, you nailed it. You know, we have hit, I think, an affordability peak. We've pushed the market as far as it's going to go. And again, people, I only talk about Orange County. It's enough to keep me busy. I think we've hit it. I think we peaked. March, April, it was the peak. And now we need to see how far it's going to slide. And I think it's going to be really, really bumpy for a while.
Because the theory is if I can't sell my house, then I'll drop the price.
Yes, but you tell that to any well-heeled Orange Countian that you have to drop your price and sell for less than your neighbor Bob did. Ego sets right in. They're like, I'm not
Right.
going to do it.
And yet, so many of us, me included, if I were to put my house on the market at $1 million or $1 million plus or whatever the crazy, I'm in the middle of the pack here, I paid a fraction of that for the house. So, okay, so it's like gambling. All right, so at one point I was up $1 million. Now I'm only up $700,000. Okay, I'm still up. So it would seem like people would, the barrier to dropping wouldn't be that great for those who've held the house for. If I bought the house and I was upside down, then no, I got
Of
to
course,
hold
but
on.
Oh,
people
sure, but we're not
aren't.
talking about that.
We're not. We're not. And also, I think a lot of these sellers who have a ton of equity, to your point, Paul, they really need to take a look at what is the net after I pay all the capital gains.
Right.
You know,
And Paul, what I think is really important about this is that this shift is happening so quickly.
yes, it really
I,
snuck up.
I actually do want to put Wendy a little bit on the hot seat because
Here we go.
something she wrote actually just less than 2 weeks ago has shifted so quickly because of what, but because of what you just presented. And Paul, you already touched upon this. So the trend is pretty clear here from what you're saying.
I think so.
Prices are
Yeah.
probably going to start sliding. As Paul said, it could be an affordability issue.
Mm-hmm.
But earlier this month, actually only May 13th, you released your April market report, which for our listeners, every month, Wendy releases her analysis of what's happened just as the month closes with Orange County real estate.
And real quick plug, where do people get that? Because that is filled with lots of good data. Everybody should be getting that market report. Where do-
I thank you. I agree with you. And I started writing it because everyone was asking the same questions. And it was easier for me just to spend a couple of days crunching through the data and interpreting it and issuing a report. So it's we post them on my website. Go to realveracity.com. Under the blog section, you'll find all of my market reports and other little factoids.
Can people subscribe to it there? So it
I
just
really
automatically
encourage you
goes-
to. Yeah, go to the Contact Us tab. And on the Contact Us tab, it will have a box for you to fill in with your information. So you will automatically get these reports sent directly to your email. Yeah, it's a lot of hard work. Excuse me, but
And it's free. So why not? Everybody wants to know, is the market
Right.
up or down? Where is it going? Because we're all trying to make these questions or these decisions in our mind with these questions.
well, it's the biggest asset most of us have.
Yeah, that's
So,
for sure.
you know, in Orange County, we know, for most of us, it's going to be worth at least $1 million. What else do we have that's worth $1 million? Good grief. It's crazy.
Well, that's a good plug. Thank you, Paul, for that. But this market report, the last one that we issued, was really interesting. So as we were saying, what Wendy does is not only take what's happening national and regional, but she plucks out Orange County and puts it in relationship to local and national because it's so different here in Orange County. And what you wrote was, quote, "Don't write this year off like a fire sale just yet. And the chances that we still are hovering at the peak are good. It's hard to gain perspective when you're in the moment. We need hindsight." Given this week's numbers, does that afford you a little bit of hindsight? Do you still believe we're hovering at the peak? You
No,
said no.
I do think that was the peak. I think March, April. I don't know that I can put a date on it. Again, because it's like the ocean, little waves are moving in and out. But yeah, I think that was the peak. I think we reached the peak, and I think we're coming off of it. And now the big question is, how much are people going to freak out? How much are buyers going to say, the sky is falling, interest rates are high, I won't overpay for the house and overpay for my loan, so I'm just going to wait. And my gut says that's not a good idea. And do I think interest rates are going to continue to go through the roof? Not sure. There are conflicting opinions about this. Interest rates may bobble up and down for a little bit. But I would say if someone needs to buy a house because they functionally need to live in a neighborhood or commute or whatever, the prices aren't going to bottom out. I mean, this is not 08, 09. We're not going to see this free for all of 20% loss in value.
So why you believe it's an affordability issue? This isn't an investment issue that you would caution people to stay away from like 08, 09.
Housing has become so much more expensive in Orange County, and it has outpaced salaries. And of course we're in a recession and we have this inflation surrounding us. So the cost for us to do everything we need to do to survive has gone up, but our salaries haven't gone up commensurately. So it's an affordability issue. I think I said last week, for the first time in my career, I noticed about half of my first time buyers are sharing cars. I mean, they're conspicuously being judicious about how they spend their money, and they're making very careful decisions.
So you just casually threw out the R word that nobody has mentioned on this station at all through all of this craziness. Even
And you know
in
what
the
I
last
say?
couple of years. You said recession.
I say F him. The emperor has no clothes. The man is naked. I don't know what else we need to talk about, people. Do I think it's going to be cataclysmic? No. It's a mild recession, or an economic reset, as some people are calling it.
Correction.
A correction, if you will. Call it what you want, but we've kicked the can of recession down the road for 40 years. The economy has to adjust. It has to reset. Again, it's like the ocean. We have to let things settle out so we can reestablish a solid foundation. And that's where we are. And the good news is buyers that I'm seeing actively in the market are aware of that. They're aware that their home is still one of their best tax write-offs. They have to live somewhere, and the cost to rent is going up just as fast as the cost to buy. But there is a point where they reach critical mass. They just can't afford it, and I think my suspicion is this summer is going to bring a lot of buyers who sit on the sideline and sit on their heels hearing this news saying, all right, then I'm going to wait for the sky to fall. And sellers saying, to heck with you, I'm not going to sell, and they're going to pull their homes off the market. We're going to have further tightening of inventory.
So let me ask you one more question here. So you started your career up in the Silicon Valley. I don't know how attuned you are to that continuing market. It seems like they got there first, which is to say $1 million average prices, and they've lived with that for a long time.
They have.
So does that mean just low turnover, few houses on the market? Because there's only so many people stay in their house longer, like they're doing here, and there are only so many people who can buy their house. So there just isn't the influx of new buyers and new sellers all the time here.
That's exactly what I think is going to happen. And that's extraordinary in that historically, when you had very little inventory, then prices would go up. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think our new normal is very little inventory, and prices are going to be stable. And I think we're going to have flattening of prices all through the summer. They may bobble up and down a little bit, pockety with neighborhoods or what have you, but the net overall is we're going to be reporting Orange County median prices unchanged or varying very little week over week all summer. It's going to be just tedious.
So let me ask you a question. I'm sorry, I know Carrie's got to jump in, but you're stoking all these ideas. I don't understand the psychology of what makes people want to sell their house. I know sometimes you went through divorce. There's a life-changing thing, or you've something happens and you just don't need this house or want this house
Or
anymore.
a job change, or
Job
an
change.
injury, or age.
Right.
You know,
But
or
beyond
yeah.
that, I don't know how much of that is if you if you put a pie chart up and you said, what percentage of people selling their homes is because they got to sell their home? They're sick, they're moving, they downsizing, whatever. Something, and how much of it is just what happened really in my lifetime, which I'd never seen in my parents' lifetime, house flipping. I'm going to just sell my house because I made some money, and I'm going to move up and go to a bigger house or somewhere else. I don't know that house flipping mentality doesn't drive a lot of this.
I think it did for a bit, but because my email inbox is filled daily with emails from said spec flippers saying, I can't find anything to flip. What do you got? What do you have in your pocket? I can't find anything to flip. They can't find anything. And the market has risen so high that anything they buy at market prices, there's no margin for them to pay to improve it and then resell it. And especially now, if you're listening to me, guys, find something else to do right now. You know, go into more distressed markets and start rehabilitating, office buildings into storage or something. You just go into a different field, because residential flipping is not a strong thing for a while.
Not in Orange County.
Not in Orange County. And the only time that it really is a super profitable thing in tight markets like this is if someone can go to a home seller and basically lie to them and say, this is the best offer you're going to get. And that would be a lie. And people constantly call me and say, well, what do you have as a pocket listing? And I'm like, let me explain this to you.
Come on, give me the one that you're
Oh,
holding.
come
Yeah.
on. It's the pocket listing. It's your favorite topic.
So let me explain this to you. I have a broker's license, and I have a fiduciary responsibility to not screw people over, right? So if I go to someone whose home is not on the market and say, hey, I've got a buyer willing to pay $1 million, and I know full well if I put it on the market, they could get $1.6 million for it, they could sue me and they would win. That, and it's just an evil, horrible, wrong thing to do, and I'm not going to do it to people. I mean, that is
But why
just
do we all
shitty.
think
It's
that
like
you...
the mean girl table at high school. Come on
Yeah.
now.
I
Come
don't
on
know
now,
why no one's
Paul.
talking about this, but it's like if someone...
But everybody
Does
thinks
Paul
you
have
guys
an inner
do
mean
it.
girl?
Oh, wow. I don't know. I might have been one long time ago. But what we all think you're doing that. We all think that you've got a few secret listings that you're not sharing with the world, and
Tell
you
me-
just say,
But every week she tells you she doesn't.
Tell
know.
me you're not speaking
Not-
about me
not just
singularly.
you, but
my industry.
yeah, your industry, right?
So the lying, cheating, greedy rat bastards that only care about their own commission, them, sure, they do it all the time.
But that's what we want to be able to do here, Paul, is to allow Wendy
Don't
to
hold
share
back
some of those
anything.
truths.
I am not, but anyone that goes to a home seller directly and says, anyone that goes to any person who has anything and says, you have what I want. Who's got the power now? The person who has what the other guy wants.
Right.
So don't be stupid, people. If someone comes to you and says, I got a buyer ready, willing, and able to pay you $1 million for your property, and you've been not paying attention, you're like, oh, that sounds really good. Call a broker. Get a broker price opinion at the very least.
Well, I actually like where this thread is going here. Now, this is really good here. What about this? So let's just get into this nitty gritty of buying and selling a home in a market with such tight inventory where we're facing such perhaps affordability issues. What actually goes into determining an asking price right now?
It is part science, part art, part crystal ball, especially when we're in a situation like this. Whenever a market is turning either up or down, emotion sets in. It's either the sellers get really emotional or the buyers get really emotional. And anticipating and putting that factor in a box is the hardest part of this equation. But the best thing we can do is exactly what we've just been talking about. Take a look at the most similar homes that have recently closed escrow near to the target property you're trying to value, and take a look at those that are currently in escrow. And even though the MLS can't tell us what the contract price is, you can pretty much glean by our list price to close price ratio that we watch every week that is close to what the list price is, maybe a little bit more, but we need to start looking at that data every week. And that's what I've done. Like with my most current listing, we did a price adjustment after 7 days because we realized the market is that dynamic. But you have to be really, really, really judicious and take a look at everything nearby at every stage of sale.
And did you go up or down?
We went down. Yeah.
Okay.
And I do want to talk about that property specifically because As we were preparing this property for listing, we were looking and addressing some questions and fielding questions from others. And as you were doing your market research, of course, there are some DIY calculators out there, and
My favorite.
that purportedly estimate home prices or home values. One of the most famous that we're always hear about is Zillow's Zestimate. What exactly is this? How do these home price calculators valuation tools actually work? Are they worth anything? Because a lot of times we hear that they're so wildly different from reality. It's causing more confusion.
Okay, so Zillow is a for-profit business. It always has been. It started as a real estate listing aggregator. They didn't buy or sell real estate themselves, they sold data. And so what they did was go to every MLS across the United States and started aggregating all of this listing information into one place. And they brilliantly created their own AI, their own technology to go in and anticipate or evaluate what an individual listing's real value was. And that's their Zillow estimate or Zestimate. It is their proprietary software. I don't have any opinion about whether it's good or bad. It just is. And when you have artificial intelligence going in and giving you value on something as nuanced as real estate, there's going to be margin of error. It's not like it's fixable. You can't tell a computer whether or not a 20,000 square foot lot or 15,000 square feet of it is a 48-degree slope downhill. It's not functional dirt that you're going to build on, versus a 12,000 square foot lot that's completely level with an ocean view in the same neighborhood. These are the nuanced things that the computer can't know. So you're going to see some discrepancies in values because functional utility, view, things that we in the industry call situs, they matter, and you can't program that in.
But I heard that Zillow has this, I just happen to know this because I'm here at the, UCI's Innovation Center, and I know that there's a lot of data scientists working on this, and they've come up with a new technique to improve their rating. They have a room full of monkeys. and they let them loose for a while. And then
Your tax dollars at work.
No, wait, that can't be funded by us.
Yes.
My head just exploded.
They're
Did you
trying
see
to
this?
fund monkeys sitting in a room picking numbers.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I don't want to trash Zillow because what they did was useful. It is a useful tool. And when you're aggregating data over millions and millions and millions of properties, you can get some trends. You can get some general trend information that is useful. When you start to see, values in counties and states and regions rise and fall, you can get a pretty good sense of what's going on. But if it's 123 Main Street, you're going to need a specialist from the 123 Main Street area to take a look at it for you.
So let me ask you another tough question here. You got me really thinking here. Usually in a hot market, you come in and you say, well, they just sold next door for this. Let's go a little more. Let's see if we can push it a little further.
Right.
And everybody pushes the envelope a little further. And the realtor that comes in and says, and then they announce, I got 50,000 more than your neighbor did. Wow, I'm gonna list with that person.
Right.
And then the next one comes in, so I got to do even more. I got to start 100,000 more. I got to start, and it just sort of carries on. And then all of a sudden it hits what you say may be happening now, this peak. And then everybody starts backpedaling. So in terms of strategy, is it good to shoot for the moon and then back off in a hot market? Or does that make you look desperate when you suddenly drop it $100,000?
Actually, Paul, that's perfect segue because I want to know, you just referenced a property that you just put on the market in Eastside Costa Mesa, super rare property where you're having these very real candid conversations with the potential sellers right now. Also, this begged one of the questions about whether the Zestimate was correct and how you came about it. So, yeah, Paul, this is a really good trend.
So do you shoot for the moon and then just back off quickly, or do you let it hang out there for a while? Because then we've all seen the property. It just cut at $100,000. You say, oh, they're desperate. It's time to go, and I'll bet lower now because they just dropped $100,000. I'll bet they'll drop more. Some
people will see it as desperation. It's impossible to be perfect. It's impossible to know. I really thought it would sell in 7 days.
Oh, tell us about this property first of all.
Okay, well, this is a very, very cool property. So for one, and let me back up. We've been talking about Zillow, and Kara and I, for weeks and weeks and weeks. And we've been talking about the Zestimate and that they are just this giant behemoth in the marketplace and. And so Kara,
With a room full of monkeys, yeah.
right, the gorilla in the room full of monkeys. So Kara looked up this address on Zillow and saw that they valued it for $1 million less than I had it listed for. And I was like, I don't even want to look at that. I don't care because it's just nah.
$1 million less?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which was also $1 million less than other data and
Other AI,
valuations
yeah.
and other AI that you had.
Yeah.
So clearly this was a glitch in their system, not a
Well, and
reflective of the market.
This morning, their Zestimate increased by $1 million. So it's like that's kind of my point. Like day to day, the Zestimate may change. And I don't know what the algorithms are that are driving that. I don't know. It's not my stuff. It's proprietary. You'll have to ask Zillow. But so my opinion is this. We really need to take a look at the market, Paul, and see what homes have sold for and be really brutally honest about how does this property compare to those homes, you know, and both in
Better
terms
view, better lot, better something, better interior.
Exactly. And things like interior finishes, while they don't add overt value, they will appeal to buyers differently. So you really have to understand who's my likely buyer to be, how old are they likely to be, what other homes are they likely to have lived in and enjoyed, you know, and what are those current taste trends, and does this property meet or exceed those taste trends? And you can't ignore that.
So, for example, I have a little house, but with a little yard, but I'm into gardening, so I have it over gardened. I got more plants crammed into this little thing than probably anybody in the neighborhood does. Some people think that's really cool, and others have said to me, you'll never sell that. Nobody wants all those plants and take care of them and everything.
I think now that we all know we're heading into a 100-year drought, that
Yeah.
might be a problem. So, you know, hang on to
Right.
the garden. I would recommend that you not sell that with the garden.
Right.
But with things
And
getting,
that used to be one of the things you do to fix up a house. You just throw a bunch of plants in the back and
Sure.
it looked pretty or something.
or people do things like they rip out the tile countertops in the kitchen, they put in stone slab or something.
Right.
And at the beginning of COVID or the middle, I would say late 2020, all through 2021, you didn't even have to paint. I mean, just put a sign in the yard and that sucker sold. It was just that easy. And now we're starting to look at things like, okay, buyers are understanding that they're paying more, you know, through their financing and through the price, that they're getting a little bit more picky in spite of the dearth of inventory. There's not much to choose from, but if they don't like what they see, they're waiting.
But liking what you see really comes down to the storytelling around a property so
Yes.
often.
And
time.
there it is.
Big time.
There, and that's why Kara knows I love this property, Paul.
Yes.
This property is.
I
one of-
want you to talk about it. Tell us about
Yeah,
this property
what
because
makes
it's
this one
so
so great?
rare and
Right.
so cool. And we usually don't talk about your listings because
It's not about that.
it's
right.
not about the
Right.
yeah, this show is
But
not
you
about
brought it
the
up.
listings.
You opened the door, so let's.
Well, actually, Kara did, but go.
Okay.
And I really want her to be able to talk about it.
All right. So this property was built in 1923. It
in
was
Costa Mesa?
in Eastside Costa
I
Mesa.
didn't think anything goes back to in Laguna maybe,
It's
but I didn't
one
think
of
there's
the
any.
oldest homes in Costa Mesa. It was one of
Okay.
the original farmhouses out there. It was an original 1923 Craftsman, and it was called the Pink House. And it was built on a triple lot. So it has this
Wow.
massive quarter-acre lot. It's a corner lot, and the home fell into like acute disrepair. I mean, of course. I mean, we all deteriorate over time, right? But some good Samaritan, not my sellers, before them, some good Samaritan went in I believe it was the early 2000s, and restored it. And they did such a good job. They really did a complete homage to the original. They put in, you know, new fiberglass and vinyl custom windows, but designed to look like the original wood ones did. And they redid the clapboard siding, and they redid the roof, but they put all the architectural elements in there that were a complete reinforcement and an homage to the original.
Is
and
it
it's
pink still?
stunning. It's not pink. It's sort of a sagey green. It's a soft sagey green, and it's gorgeous. And there are these wonderful columns that were built into the front of the home that face Orange Avenue, and they left those intact. And then when they expanded onto the home, they added a wing, if you will, a two-story wing to one side, and they put a little patio, a side patio out there, and they put columns out there they had custom made to match the
There
front.
can't be any or many historical homes in Costa
No.
Mesa because it doesn't go back that far.
I called it
Actually, the city is quite historic and does have a robust historical society and preservation of homes.
yeah, and
But
they're-
like in Santa Ana, there are homes that go back to the
No,
turn
I'm
of-
talking about Costa Mesa.
I know, but
Yeah.
so certain communities
Yeah.
have that kind of
Costa
connection.
Mesa doesn't have as many of them, but the ones that they have, like when I called the Costa Mesa Historical Society and said, "Is there any chance you have any old photos of the Pink House?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, just come on down." They knew exactly what it was. They knew the address. They knew all about it. They asked me if I could get them photos of the remodel that my clients did do, because my clients did do the latest addition to it. They didn't do the restoration, but they did expand the home, and they added this gorgeous 3-car garage, but did it in the same style with the deep eaves and the craftsman detailing, and it's just stunningly beautiful. And we're like, well, yeah, we'd love to share these photos. But the city, while it hasn't been registered as historic, it is recognized as part of Costa Mesa history. And anyone who digs that, who grew up here, is going to want to come see this house. I just think
It's a one of a kind.
it's
right.
a one of a kind, and it was so carefully redone. It was so carefully restored. Like the built-in buffet in the dining area. Our grandmas all had in their houses. The built-in cabinetry. It's still there.
How do you price one of a kind anything, though? If it's a
It's-
one of a kind,
yeah.
then it breaks all the rules. There's
It
somebody that
does.
there are other people who say, well, that's beautiful, but I'm not that excited about the one of a kind car or house or whatever. But those who want that will pay anything for it because it's one of a
And
kind.
there are those people who really want to buy, a 1930s Bentley.
Yes, right.
And there are those who really want to buy a 2022 Bentley, and they're not the same audience.
Completely.
And the
right.
same with this house. So the client who really wants a modern farmhouse that inside is really very contemporary is probably not going to like this house. But you and I, like my house is a 1947 home, and I dig that it's vintage. And I'm annoyed that the interior was remodeled, not paying attention to the heritage of the home.
Right.
I want to put it back. This home has it. I mean, the wide plank acacia wood floors. Who buys acacia wood floors? It's like the most expensive flooring you can get, and it's gorgeous.
I just
Yet
went
the
to Home-
house has whole home AC, water purification,
Oh, yeah.
and all these other modern
Built-in
luxuries
surround
in
sound.
it.
It's got tech wiring in the wall. So the things that you don't see are totally there.
Right. Because
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that's the problem with the old houses. They can't, if you want to do anything tech inside them, the wires suck,
No,
the
it's-
pipes suck.
It has
everything.
all been completely redone. It's just, but when they closed up the walls and they put it all together, they put these incredible vintage looking light fixtures in. They had custom windows built to match what the original styling was. Yes, there are some speakers you can see in the ceilings and stuff because they want to have, they want to enjoy their life. And yes, they had a gorgeous custom pool built out back, which I love. That there's an app on their phone. They turn the waterfalls on with their phone app. It's
Oh,
just,
wow.
it's
There's an app for that.
there's an app for that.
Yeah, for that.
But it's the best of both worlds. So to your question, Paul, how do I price this bespoke home? I priced it slightly above median, above the average price for homes of that size in this neighborhood. Not because it's so incredibly unique, more because the lot is so unique.
Right.
There's only one lot currently on the market, and they're asking significantly more for that property. The lot is almost twice the size. The house is 840 square feet. My listing is 3,100 square feet.
Wow.
So how do you compare those two properties? An 840 square foot shack
Right.
on this massive lot that someone, given our prior conversation, is certainly going to buy, subdivide, and build 4 houses on. Go whoever that is. But mine is turnkey, and for someone who just really wants to live in a piece of history.
And also with this particular property, it touches upon another trend that we're always discussing here, which is ADUs.
Right.
Because you're starting to have conversations with buyers about properties like this, that this particular home already has an ADU there. Could this be something that is a rental property? Is
Define
this
that
something?
just so everybody knows what
Yeah.
an ADU is.
Accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
What are the benefits of those right now, and why is it so rare to find it? And we're always talking about affordability, but that goes hand in hand with inventory.
It's a little extra house that sits on the lot,
Yeah.
like granny. I used to call them as granny shacks.
And we can't say the G word anymore. But yes, that's exactly what it is. The reason I think this one is so well done is because it's not conspicuous, and because it was incorporated into this massive remodel that these homeowners did, where they added not only a huge 3-car garage with giant doors, you could put a Sprinter van in there, they also put a giant concrete parking pad inside their fence. So you can drive in off the street, you can park 3 cars in the garage, you could park another couple cars on the slab. So people's neighbors' issues with ADUs about, parking density and all of this house solved both of those problems in one fell swoop. They built the garage, they built the parking, they built a ground floor master suite because they had an aging family member they were trying to entice to come live with them. And it's a massive room with gorgeous views of the lush front yard. I mean, the landscaping's ridiculous, right? And they built that patio access so that they could go right outside and sit on the patio and enjoy the yard. With its own bathroom and walk-in closet, whatnot. Well, they put the ADU upstairs above that. So from the outside, you can access independently. You know, you don't have to go in the front door of the main house, obviously. You go around the garage. There's a stairwell back there where people can just discreetly walk up to their ADU. So it's not conspicuous to the neighbors. It doesn't look like someone just threw an apartment on top of their house. It has parking. And whoever is living in that ADU is going to look out at this garden. It's going to be like living in a B&B. It's ridiculous. It's so gorgeous. High ceilings, ceiling fans, a full kitchen. I mean, it's like, good grief, I'd live there if I could. But yeah, so it was smart for them to do that in terms of resale, Kara, because ADUs are kind of a hot button. They're getting a little bit harder to build because of the cost to build them, and neighbors are getting kind of stinky about it. So I think it adds a lot of value.
And cities aren't sure whether they like it or not here. Cities have, it's California law now that opens this up, but I
Right.
haven't seen cities embrace it, particularly coastal communities where they're worried about too much
Well, when the
density.
wealthy neighbors come out with pitchforks, the city's officials kind of go, oh, well, wait a minute, let's talk about this,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and they kind of puss out, in my opinion.
Don't hold back. Just
I'm
tell
not
us.
gonna.
All right, well, we're not going to puss out anymore. We only do have a few more minutes of the show, and I do have one more question to wrap up, but we're always talking about these amazing experts you have around you, Wendy.
Yes.
Paul, would you do us a favor this week?
Let's talk about one of them, and that is the one we tout so often here, the sponsor of your show here, Ford and DiUlio. They're an Orange County-based boutique litigation firm with experienced attorneys from the big law firms, but they're working for you in a smaller, more intimate boutique situation here. People who founded it did so in the concept of aligned interest, where their success is related to your success, not just how long they draw out the litigation and how high they run up the bills, and where they engage in the relentless pursuit, this is the key, relentless pursuit of their clients' goals. Whether it's litigation, mediation, or even trial, they're there to do what you want. So if that's something you're missing or you'd like to find out more about, simple way to do it, go to the web, FordDiulio.com, just like it sounds, FordDiulio.com, FordDiulio.com. And listen to that one episode. They're actually pretty cool guys here that run this thing here.
I have great respect for dogged determination.
They
I
really,
do.
they have that kind of dogged determination, and yet not necessarily just to create litigation to run bills up, but to get you done what you want.
It's very
There's a difference,
satisfying
yeah.
getting the client what they want. It's
Yes.
very satisfying. I love it.
Exactly. Well,
So,
that's
yeah.
what you do.
I try my darndest.
You're trying. All right, in the minute that we have or so,
Here we go.
final recap. Give us some predictions. What will the OC residential real estate market look like this summer?
And we're going to hold you to it.
I know you are.
What about what factors do we need to
Yeah.
consider? Of course, there's COVID. There's going to be what's going to be happening with inflation. We now see
Elections
that
and-
employers,
right.
employers probably are not going to be allowing people to work from home. That was we thought they were going to happen. You know, we just even heard a report coming in here that more Americans are itching to travel this year than they have been. Pent up demand.
Even with the gas price at ridiculous prices.
yeah.
Cabin fever is real.
Right.
So something else that I want to add to this litany of issues that could affect it is that a lot of the mortgage foreclosure forbearance programs and eviction forbearance moratoriums are supposed to sunset. Some people think that Sacramento is going to extend it for California. I really hope that they don't. But there are, you know, hundreds of thousands of people who are more than 90 days late on their mortgage now. And if those homes enter the market, that could have, you know, an impact. It could have an adverse impact. It's really hard to say. We're so under inventoried. But having added that to the list of doom and gloom, you know, issues, I think that we've all gotten pretty accustomed to COVID. We're all thinking, okay, I'm probably not going to die. Most of us, you know, 3 out of 4 at least are vaccinated. So, you know, we're not dying from it when we get it kind of thing. So I don't think that's going to have the impact that it did at the beginning. I also don't think it's going to drive the market up or down. I think it's just sort of a moot point. And more impactful really is just the affordability issue. If people simply can't afford it, you know, they're going to stubbornly wait because hope springs eternal. They want to believe what they want to believe. And I saw this in 2013 and 2014 when I would tell buyers, get in the market. They're like, no, this is just a bump. It's going to fall back down again. And those who bought when I begged them to buy, thank me, you know, and those who didn't wait, they're like, oh, you were right. Yeah, and we're kind of at one of those stages. It's like, I don't want to be right. Well, I do want to be right, but it's not about being right. It's about giving good advice. Yeah, I think that if somebody really needs to buy a house for whatever their personal reasons are, and they intend to live there for 4, 5, 6 or more years, it's a perfectly smart time to buy. If you think you want to buy something because you've got a gig job, you've got a contract, you're going to go back to New York next year, you might not want to buy. You might want to wait it out. And if you need to sell, for the love of God, because a life event happened, and Paul, to your point, that's like 75% of the sellers. They're not selling just willy-nilly. They're selling because they really need a smaller house, a larger house, no stairs.
Or they got to move or for whatever
They
reason.
got a
yeah.
job in, in LA County or whatever, or Seattle or whatever. I mean, there are people who need to move, and they need to stop trying to time the market, because it's not going to move that dramatically to make that make sense. If we can get you a ready, willing, and able buyer now, sooner is probably better. Sooner is better to sell.
All right, that's it. You've heard it. The prediction is stop trying to time the market.
Really? It's like the
Yeah.
same thing with the stock market. We're all trying to guess when it goes up or down.
Well, it's going to be this stubborn push-pull. Buyers are going to dig their heels in. I know that they are, and I hate admitting this because I've seen it before, and say, we're going to wait for the prices to fall because everyone's saying that they will. And sellers are like, there's only 14 houses on the market. I'm not going to drop my price for you. What are you, insane? And so there's going to be this stalemate. The summer is going to be a long, Cold War summer.
All right, I'm sure we've left our listeners with more questions and answers. So how can they get a hold of you?
Through you, Kara.
Or us. They can
Call
the
OC
station.
Talk Radio.
Yeah.
No, just go really contact me on my website. Go to realveracity.com, hit the contact tab, put in your information, and you can leave a note, and I will reach out to you. Of course, you can just follow me on LinkedIn. That's really the best place. Someone hacked my Instagram, people. So we're on pause here, trying to get the hackers out of my stupid Instagram account, but that's going to be up and running.
Don't buy crypto from Wendy. She's actually not selling it.
I'm not selling crypto, people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Someone just hacked my Instagram. Or just call me. Dang it, my phone number's all over the universe. It's 949-870-2424. So if you really want to talk, give me a call.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks,
bet.
Paul.